Some of you know me fairly well and have observed me as I've made a lot of trial and errors here on my farm. But those of you that are new to this farm and have not been in close proximity to me have some questions about what I'm doing here. So I'm going to try to explain my operation and how I've been going about caring for the soil in the last couple of years. So 3 years ago, I was talking to a neighbor, and he was relay cropping soybeans and wheat. I thought that's a very interesting idea. I should try that. And so that was my first introduction on this very farm here. Planted the whole thing into wheat that fall, and the next spring I planted it into soybeans. That was following a corn crop. And I'm currently on a 3-year crop rotation. So following the wheat and soybeans, I'm also doing rye and soybeans. Following that, it'll go back into either rye or wheat, depending what had been growing there the previous year. And the following spring, it'll be seeded into clover, which will grow up with the wheat or rye. And I'll harvest the rye in the summertime, and the following year we'll plant corn into it. So that's what my 3-year crop rotation looks like at this point. So I'm going to start off with talking about whether to use rye or wheat. And we'll be able to see that this field right here is wheat, and this field over here is rye. So we'll be able to kind of observe that. The wheat, the biggest challenge, there's 2 big challenges with wheat. Number one is it's shorter, so it tends to be more difficult to harvest the wheat over top of the growing soybeans. And the second problem is there's not a lot of people out there that are looking for wheat to grow as a cover crop. So it's a little bit harder to sell and make a profit on that. The rye, on the other hand, is much taller and is fairly easy to market at this point. The other problem with the rye, though, is it's so much taller that the soybeans do not get as much sunlight, and they have to struggle to get up there to get sunlight. A lot of farmers will plant 2 rows of wheat or rye and then plant a row of soybeans and not have that competition. And we're probably going to move to that in the future. Possibly even this fall we'll be plugging off some rows in our drill to maybe do some of that and maybe do some experiments with that. The way I've been doing it with planting rye or wheat after I've harvested the corn, and then the following spring, tried to get in around the 1st of May to plant soybeans. You don't want your small grain to be too tall, or it doesn't recover as good. But if you get in there too early, your soybeans will be too tall to harvest the small grain. And that's also a problem. Our combine, we have a 35-foot draper head. We put wheels on the head itself that we can use to control the height of the header pretty accurately, to where we're not going down and gouging into the soybeans and cutting off the soybeans. But we do drive over the soybeans when we harvest the wheat or the rye. And there's some strips left in the field because of that. Last year, my brother tried 30-inch row beans and then drove between them to harvest the rye. And that worked pretty well, actually. This year, we decided not to do that. I think it was probably just because it was more work to set the planter up, so we went back with 15-inch row. There wasn't a yield difference to see. So, yes.
One of the bigger issues with that is our head is a 35 foot and our planter is 40 foot. And so you had to make an adjustment somewhere, because you couldn't drive between planter rows, you're going to be smashing down beans. So it was really inefficient when it came to harvest time.
Okay, yes.
15-inch row is just kind of nicer.
He was the one that did the planting and harvesting, and so he would know that it was somewhat less efficient than just doing 15-inch row soybeans. Depending on your setup and your equipment, that might work really well. So it just depends on what you have. Kind of helps determine what you're going to do in your operation as well.